is every way to make your friends laugh in Minecraft. And hey, YouTube bet me that you can't subscribe to the channel before I empty my inventory into this chest. So to prove them wrong, dump your finger on that white subscribe button down below. It's free and it helps out a ton. If your friends always wanted to live at sea, then here's a way to bring the sea to them, or at least part of it. Since folks, boats are entities, which means that if we want to, we could place down a whole bunch of these and cover your friend's entire house in boats. I mean, let's be honest, it's not exactly an expensive prank, especially if you got yourself a tree farm, or even just a good axe and a taiga tree. And while it's annoying that these can't stack in your inventory, placing them down is a really easy setup. And then when your friend wants to get rid of it, they're also easy to clean up. And they'll probably want to as well, considering that many entities could get a little laggy. And really that's the most destructive part of this prank, the lag. And the only thing that I would caution against so that you don't get anything too mean would be making sure that none of the boats get too close to your friend's animal pen. While they're easy to break by themselves, when you have to look at the proper hitboxes to make sure that you're not killing your pigs and sheep, then it gets annoying. This is my friend's house, and this is my house. Notice any similarities? Since a great prank is to go and copy your friend's base verbatim block for block and place it right next to theirs. And after all, I've heard that taking inspiration's a great thing, so I stop at just taking inspiration and take their whole base as well. And if you're able to install a mod that lets you preview a schematic so that you can get it just right, then that can really add to the detail of getting this prank done right. If you want to, you can even put up a wall of glass in between and have it look like the mirror image. I think that would be pretty funny too. A little wax friends' copper blocks, and whether they're trying to let them oxidize or not, just going through and waxing a couple blocks here and there could be enough to make them think that they're going crazy, or it could also let you tuck in a hidden message if you want as well. And this one's probably the definition of a slow burn, since oxidizing copper already takes a long time, and with that wax, it's gonna take even longer. Which at that point, it might be good for you too. You get to basically forget about the prank, and then be surprised when you remember how badly you got them. Minecraft signs already aren't the easiest thing to read, especially when you have glasses like me, but we can make that so much worse with just the right color of dye. So for example, if your friend has white text on a dark background of a sign, then just by going through and changing it over to dark text on the darker background, it basically gets impossible to read. So unless they want to go deal with something like glow ink sacks, and let's be honest, no one wants to deal with glow squids, then they're basically stuck with this one. And with the ability to edit your friend's signs, you can also change that new darker text into a hidden message for them to see. And hidden's the right word for it. Since when it's this hard to read, you really have to put this under a microscope before you even know what the prank was in the first place. This carpet offers us the perfect cover-up, since while this rug might look the exact same all the way throughout, the truth is that if you tuck in a wall or a fence underneath some of the carpet blocks like so, then your friend won't be able to see that they're there, but they'll definitely notice when they're stepping over their rug and occasionally bob up and down. And if your friend has a low ceiling, this could also be an even better confusion there too, since they won't even know why they're not able to walk on parts of their floor, at least until they check underneath and realize they were hitting their head all along. You ever feel like you're being watched even when there's no one around? Well, in this case, that's not exactly a conspiracy theory, since what we did is that we went through and hid a secret face within your friend's base. And this is an illusion I've loved when we've shown it off in the past, but the idea of putting it in your friend's base to make them think that they're going crazy, I mean, if it doesn't make them laugh, it at least makes me laugh. And it doesn't have to just be a face like this, too. You could go through and change their glazed terracotta so that it looks like there's actually a penguin sticking up like we've shown here. When you notice it, it's pretty funny, but it's also easy enough to fade into the background, especially when you're familiar enough with a spot, you're not exactly checking every minute detail. You just want to open your chest and leave, which is perfect for a prank like this. If you and your friends start out on a new world together, then that's your cue to make them laugh. And a simple way to do that is just when they're going to go mine through a tree, little do they know that you're actually standing on top of those logs, so that when they mine out the floor beneath you, you'll drop down on top of them, giving them a surprise. I mean, it's a lot better than getting an anvil dropped in your face like we've shown in other pranks in the past, so if I had to choose between being greeted with death or my friend's face, it's a tough choice, but I think I'll have to stick with my friend there. Once your friend goes AFK, that's your cue to bust out the redstone knowledge. Since with the help of a proper flying machine, you're able to relocate that static player to an entirely different location on the map. And personally, I like shooting them right up into the sky and leaving them there. I mean, they'll be pretty safe up there. It's not exactly like mobs are gonna spawn. And as long as they don't freak out too much when they come back to their computer, it could be quite the silly surprise for them to lay their eyes on. And a good opportunity to practice their water bucket clutch. I mean, come on, at that point, it's just thoughtful. Hearing that classic TNT going off sound is a scary scary thing. And it should be. It normally means that you're in bad trouble. But here we get all of the scare without any of the damage, or the cleanup. Since all that we're using here is an observer to detect a redstone signal of your friend mining a block or interacting with something, and that's all we need to have it ignite the TNT, but that TNT's fallen into water. So when it goes off, there's gonna be absolutely no damage to anything around it or your friend, which is a good way to give them a jump scare without giving them a reason for revenge. Which, hey, gives you one less reason to look over your shoulder and be paranoid about, so I think that's worth something. Picture the situation. You built up this great dining hall and then call all of your friends for a meeting. Each of you sit in mine carts because there's really no other way to sit in the game, and when you get all of them there for that emergency meeting, that's when you finally reveal why they're actually there. You mount out these few center blocks that breaks the floor beneath you, and all of you drop into what's now what you've discovered, the ancient city. And credit to user Scrouso for their creativity with this. It's really an impressive prank. I mean, not only do you have to do all of the setup of getting your friends there and building the dining hall, but you also have to mine out all of the chunks that you actually fall into the ancient city. Then you only got one chance to actually make it work. But when you do, it's hard to say that the results don't speak for themselves. Spawning a wither's a rude awakening, but spawning a wither like this isn't, mostly because it's not spawning a wither. Sure enough, even though we built up the wither structure in the same way that we would usually, by the simple fact that we have a non-air block underneath the soul sand, that wither won't spawn, regardless of how many wither skulls you put on top of it. So as long as you build this T-shape over something as simple as a torch, carpet, or snow underneath, that wither isn't going to spawn, but it could still offer up a scare if you want to terrify your friends. And the way that I would love to do this is to go down mining with your friend, and then when they're turned around, place up the T structure, and then when they finally turn around, place down the final skull, only for them to be panicked as to why it's not even spawning in the first place. Server bugs are annoying until you use them to your advantage. Since while usually it's frustrating if you're not able to see your friend, if you're clever enough to think on your feet, then we can take after Grian and use this to startle your friends while they're not able to see you. And whether that's placing signs or blocks to throw them off, I mean, let's face it, you get as much versatility as you would if you were normally invisible, but without all the particles is a dead giveaway. If you're lucky enough to get this glitch, or even smart enough to force it, then use that golden opportunity to make your friends scared or laugh. I'll let you choose. Finding good real estate on the server is a tough thing to do, especially when your friends are able to rebuild an entire cliff just to hide your house. Yeah, something like that seems like housing market manipulation to me, but it does make for a good prank. And take after this Reddit user who literally rebuilt their friend's house inside of a cliff face ravine. And I don't know if it's the shaders in these screenshots, but honestly looking at this, it doesn't look that bad. I mean, maybe a little inconvenient to get down to, but that's what water bucket saves are for. If anything, it's just good practice. So if you got something like Lightmatica that allows you to recreate your friend's build block for block with a proper schematic, that's really all the excuse you need to be able to recreate something like this and get a good prank out of it. If you're able to get your friend to download a random resource pack, then that's basically a blank check to mess with them. Since while they think it's just doing simple things like changing the textures as so for a minigame or whatnot, the truth is that we switched the lava texture to water. And all of a sudden, exploring down in the caves gets a lot more inviting and they'll end up losing their stuff to that water inside of the nether. Bamboo and sugarcane are some of the fastest crops to grow in Minecraft, though my friend's bamboo farm will never grow another stalk again. And the reason for that, albeit nearly invisible, is that if you place down string right on top of the bamboo stalk, past that point it'll no longer grow, which should definitely be a way to confuse your friends when they're wondering why their farm isn't producing like it used to. And considering that bamboo's a lot more useful in recent updates, this could be your invitation to sabotage their bamboo farm so that they have to buy it from you, or charge a fee to come by and fix it. Because after all, if they're not taking a closer look, they might have just thought that they planted it on the wrong block. And as long as you make sure that you're not holding any string when they come asking questions, I think you'll be in the clear. If your friend has a big enough ego to go around building statues of themselves, they honestly need to be taken down a peg. I mean, sure, it's impressive, but are they impressive enough to need a statue? Who's to say? You, however, are definitely deserving of a statue. And in that case, you should go through and replace the statue's skin with one of your own. I mean, they already gave you the template for the proportions. Now it's just coming up with the right block palette to match your own. I mean, I'm in luck. I just have to get red concrete and I'm basically 90% done. And really, as this comment points out on Reddit, if someone's willing to go through and change a statue like this, that's a lot of dedication. At that point, you should just leave it the same way to applaud them. And honestly, I'm inclined to agree. Ender pearls can make for a great escape plan. plan. But what if you're not in danger, but rather you're just looking to confuse your friend? Well, even in that case, an ender pearl stasis chamber does the job just right. Since with one of these set up on a timer, you can appear in your friend's house out of nowhere, or vanish from their eyes in an instant, and that's definitely going to be enough to confuse them. Especially if you can bait your friend into chasing you, and then flip a switch so that halfway through the chase scene, you're removed from the script entirely. Clearly, you can do a lot of impressive things with map art, and we've shown as much in past videos. But while you can use a lot of detail for these, I don't even think we have to go that difficult. In fact, just replicating one of the regular Minecraft paintings, and then switching out subtle things and placing this in your friend's base will be all it takes to mess with their regular art. For one, you get to see if they even notice your subtle shenanigan, and if they did, they should be impressed. One of these maps costs 128 by 128 blocks, so you're willing to go quite the extra mile just to prank them. And honestly, art's subjective. I think this looks better anyway. As my friend Brandy's shown off, you can definitely use goats to kill your friends, but that's a little harsher than we're going for right now. So how about just pranking your friends with one of these goats? And for that purpose, it's hard to get better at annoying someone than a screaming goat. And hiding one of these inside of your friend's base, it'd be all it takes to drive them crazy. I've heard of the telltale heart underneath your floorboards, but something about the telltale goat, I think that'd be even quicker at ending Edgar Allan Poe's story. It would just be a one-liner. Just be careful the goat doesn't turn against you while you're trying to trap it down in the house. Their screams aren't the only part of them that's annoying. I never understand the people who log onto a multiplayer server and then decide to just play it as single player, completely isolating themselves from the rest of the bunch. And if your friend tends to do the same thing, then why not do them a favor and actually segment them by putting a giant glass dome around their base? I mean, hey, they wanted a quarantine. It's hard to do it better than a giant glass dome. And if you do this around the holidays, then it functions as both a barrier and a snow globe. Come on, isn't that just delightful? Yeah, maybe they won't think as much, but hey, they tend to keep to themselves anyway. If they start arguing, you could just leave them be. You ever walk into your base and something just feels off? Like, I could have sworn that furnace used to be over there, or that chest does not seem like it's organized the same way. Well, usually, that's just your brain playing tricks on you. But today, call ourselves your brain, because we're gonna be playing the tricks ourselves. And just by making subtle changes to your friend's base, like swapping out paintings, or even adding in random blocks into various places that they haven't been before, be all that it takes to see if your friend notices your little experiment. And like I said, if you're able to get your friends to download a resource pack, then one of the funniest ones that you can trick them into getting is the Fresh Animations Villagers. Now, the Fresh Animations pack is great, but it's hard to argue that the villagers don't look a little silly. And as Green's shown off, the kind of strange looks that you can start to get from the villagers when you get your friend to download this, I mean, it's good enough to make me laugh. I hope it can make them too. Once your friend gives a name to their pet, that's not the end of the story. Since with a name tag of our own, we're able to go through and rename that pet to whatever we want it to be. So instead of your friend's pet being named Fluffy, now it's Yiffle, and it's more of an anagram than anything else. But hey, you didn't kill their dog, all you did was just play a little bit of word search. And it's easy enough to go through and just replace with a name tag of your own. For the cost of one level to clean up, I think that's a pretty safe prank to play on your friends. And one that can still be pretty funny. If your friend likes to decorate their winter wonderland with a couple of snow golems, then the way that you could help them out to make it an actual winter wonderland is take a pair of shears and remove all of the pumpkins off their heads. Let's face it, this forgotten texture from the original snowman is pretty funny looking. And it also fits the aesthetic a little better of the snowman. So there you go. In some ways you're helping them achieve their vision, and in others you're giving them a chuckle. It's really just for them to choose which one it is. Here's a fun trick to show your friends that you can do with mobs. Now if you get a mob into the back of your boat, and then you land both of you on top of ice, then when you start spinning around on the boat, all the momentum's gonna give the mob a lot of whiplash, and their heads will start to spin around in a pretty weird way. Which to me looks painful, but the chicken looks to be enjoying itself, so I guess to each their own. Maybe they loosen their neck a little bit more than I do. And to any bystanders looking on, I can only imagine that this looks even sillier. Maybe you've heard this before, but you can't sleep now, there's monsters nearby. But when you look around, you don't see any. Enter the monster under your bed. See, if you dig a 2-block hole underneath the bed, add in a daylight sensor, and then place an armor stand on top, it'll be just the right height to see the eyes of the monster head peek through right here, which is a good way to startle anyone who walks into your guest bedroom. Once you take down the Ender Dragon, there's not much to show off your victory. I mean, there's the egg, but there's only one of them to go around, and that doesn't seem fair for a group effort. So if you want something to show off for all those involved on the server, this dragon skin rug seems like a perfect pick. Plus, it's a pretty funny sight gag, so that doesn't hurt either. And by adding in little details like buttons for scales, there are subtle ways to make this a really solid addition to your living room's floor. So if you're not already using your dragon's head for a piano, this has got to be the next best use for them. I'd like to introduce you all to my new pet berries. And yeah, you heard me right, I have berries as a pet. Or at least it looks like that. See, this user found out that by catching a fox and making it invisible, all that's left showing are the bushel of sweet berries in its mouth. And for that matter, I'm sure you could use this to lead around just about any of the other items that a fox can carry in its mouth. But regardless of what you use, you'll want to keep this pet away from your chicken coop, or else. Okay, so you've probably heard of the Headless Horseman, but what about the Bodiless Steve? See, after placing down some path blocks, we can throw a pig inside a minecart, hop on, and ride into the floor like so, with only our head to poke out of the top of the path, which can either startle your friends or lend to the weirdest game of soccer yet. And whichever option you choose, just make sure not to dismount the pig while you're down there. Otherwise, you'll go from an awkward situation into something a lot more uncomfortable. When you're idling at a farm in Minecraft, there's not a lot to do. I mean, most of us would just go off and do something away from the screen, but if that's out of the question for you, then we'll have to find some other way to be productive. Now to start, get out a book and quill. And no, this isn't to take notes or anything, that book's actually our project. You see, the way that Minecraft scrolls through different pages, it's actually possible, in some weird way, to make flipbook animations in the game. Is it limited? Sure, but remember, someone remade Star Wars in ASCII art, so the possibility is pretty high. So if you're gonna be killing the time anyway, then you might as well make yourself a magnum opus. Traps are a tale as old as Minecraft itself, but while there are plenty of flashy ways to imprison or blow up your pals, this might be the best way to hold them accountable, since with the dripstone spikes, we can make something of a functional guillotine for our use in our Minecraft worlds. Sure enough, you tuck the culprit underneath the trap door and have a system to let the spike fall far enough, and then you can have quite the public display. So while I wouldn't recommend it for any kind of quick attack, this might be a way to keep those hackers in line, just as long as they're not wearing a helmet. With just one bed and a bell, we can gather all of our villagers like that. And it really is as simple as just placing down the bed in the middle of an area, and then you'll see them all flock towards the bed. Give all of your villagers wrangled up, which you could then use to either convert them all into witches with a trident, or convert them all into zombies with this method here. Whatever the point is, I'll let you decide. But now at least you'll know how to gather up the rapscallions. Now, thankfully, Java Minecraft doesn't have much for microtransactions, but that does leave us behind in terms of cosmetics, or rather, it would if we didn't have this command. You see, with the /item replace command, we can put blocks and items on our armor slots that we couldn't normally. So, sure, Steve doesn't normally have a mohawk, but put an anvil on your helmet and the problem's solved. Or you can add an emerald to your head and look like a sim. Really, the possibilities here are quite open, so now it's all up to you to find your favorite one. Here's how to turn your pistons from this into this. And the secret behind this isn't doing something like McMakestein's mod, even though that is cool, but instead by just using the set block command with different parts of the piston, we can separate the head from the body and then place fence post lining in the middle. And there you have it, a giant piston. And if you really wanted to, you could even make this into the sticky variant as well. Just don't expect it to retract anything. There's no off switch for this one. By using just a candle and a chainmail helmet, we can get a pretty convincing mouse and keyboard setup. And hey, for an added bonus, enchant the helmet for an RGB effect. Or if you're more of a console player, don't sweat it. A Blackstone wall does the trick for that as well. Oceans are a common obstacle in Minecraft travel, but luckily, boats offer up an easy solution for that. However, these simple ships could really use an upgrade. So if you're looking to become a proper captain on the 7 seas, maybe use your boat's second seat for a boost. Like maybe bringing along a witch to offer up some extra artillery support, because luckily for us, their potions throw in such an arc that you'll never get hit. Or maybe you're trying to move house, in which case a llama brings along some extra storage slots for your belongings. And really, whichever you choose, I'm sure it'll be better than just having some lonely trip across the deep blue. I don't think any of us want to get on a bee's bad side. For one, they're just so adorable that you probably don't want to hurt one anyway, but that's not to mention that they can also carry quite a stinger. So, to change their offensive capabilities to defensive, how about we make ourselves a bee army? With this swarm, all it takes is an enemy to be hit by one mistake, and the damage will be done. And folks, if you can believe it, these things can even take down the Wither. Now sure, you'll need a lot of them, and it would probably help to splash them with a Strength 2 potion, but the point still stands that this buzzing battalion can wreck through anything you throw at them. And maybe next time, they'll want to stay on your good side. With the help of the new mangrove planks, we can build something like this. I'm so sorry. But if you want to build a suspicious statue in your own world, all you need are some mangrove slabs, 2 doors, and a trapdoor to cover up the block for the center visor. Plus, if you partner this with the new sculk blocks, that will really make this look out of this world. Why are these armor stands fighting? Well, when you have these statues roll over a detector rail, we can animate them like so, which means that we can use our very own armor stands to recreate something of a sword fight. And then if you have the rails aligned in a row like so, we can throw them into minecarts and have the show commence, which if you ask me could really help to liven up your next Colosseum build. Just don't expect their fight to end anytime soon. By stacking up 20 or so villagers into a hole like this, we can make it so that when we fall inside of the hole as well, we can jump with our elytra and use all of the combined force of their pushes to launch ourselves sky high. And there you go, you've got an entity launcher that doesn't use any rockets, making this not only hilarious, but also quite effective. But take warning, if you want to build this, make sure that there's less than 24 villagers in the hull. Otherwise, you might run into the entity cramming limit, and then this design won't take you up to the skies, it'll take you up to heaven. Let's be honest, with the way that we're treating the villagers, we're probably going south of the pearly gates. This build hack is a violation of the Geneva Convention. And now that I got your attention, let's talk about how we built it. Because luckily, what's actually happening here isn't as cruel as it seems. But by tucking a villager into place in a cauldron and then using a Dinnerbone name tag, we can flip it upside down, but because it's a cauldron, it's not gonna drown inside that block. Not to mention the fact that that's not how the Dinnerbone name tag works anyway. And then with a couple of chains on top to keep it in place, we make it look as if it's hanging inside the pot. Even though, luckily, the villager's a paid actor and no one was harmed in the process. Armor stands not only let us display our armor, but also use that armor as a decoration. And this here's my favorite instance. See, while this looks like a regular chest to the outside world, when you open it up, we're treated to a proper golden treasure inside. And the setup is surprisingly simple. All we need to do is lay our armor stand on a block with a shorter hitbox, in this case, an enchantment table, and then push a regular block in a chest into its place with a piston. And from there, what I love most about this is that the helmet fits right within the spot of the chest texture, almost like it's meant to be. To make sure our villagers are safe when they're doing our bidding, we have to defend against raids. And the easiest way to do that is to take a pillager mob that might have spawned from a patrol, tuck it into a prison and give it a name tag, so that then, whenever you walk by with the bad omen effect, the raid's never actually gonna start, because it thinks that Larry over here is the only raider that it should be sending. And then after a few days in-game, the raid will end, and your base will be completely fine, all without having to worry about things like evokers or ravagers ever too. And if it means I have to enslave one pillager so that I can keep enslaving my villagers, that's fine by me. Bad traps stick out like a sore thumb, which is why if you see a random pressure plate out in the open, most of us know not to step on it. But that's the whole point of this. You see, we want our victim to expect that it's trapped, break the pressure plate, and then the real trap goes in motion. The item is then sucked up by the hopper minecart, goes into a real hopper, and then a comparator sets off a signal, and the rest is history. Now, while you could be more cruel here by adding in more TNT minecarts, I think this actually could work really well in a rigged desert temple. That, folks, would be a surprise for sure, and one that's likely to leave them with no items to their name. Sometimes in Minecraft, it can be easy to forget that your actions have consequences. So, to give your friend a quick refresher course, then how about we design a trap with that karma in mind? Now, I don't know about you, but on my world, exposed target blocks are a rare sight, meaning that as soon as someone sees one, you can guarantee that an arrow is going straight for the center. But this time, instead of a bullseye, they'll be treated to Newton's third law of motion. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And in this case, that reaction is a poison arrow headed straight for their torso. Is it cruel? Well, it's hard to say they didn't ask for it. And maybe now they'll think twice before they act. We can wait for this build hack to load in, but the truth is, it never will, because that's the whole point. And by mixing together an invisible item frame with a goat horn like this, we can use a command block that constantly updates it so that it rotates and creates this loading screen animation that we see here, which can be great for making your friends think they have a bad internet connection, or it might just be useful to have for the next time you set up a new map and you need something for the players to see while you get everything ready. And really, so few of the Minecraft textures are animated, so it's nice to see us make do where we can. Over the years, Minecraft has steadily added new pets to choose from. While everyone else opts for a dog or maybe the new axolotl, what if you want something a bit more unique? Well, there is a solution, albeit a weird one. Now, of course, the main thing that you're looking for with a pet is loyalty. So why don't go straight to the source with a Loyalty 3 Trident? No kidding, what this thing lacks in pulse, it apparently makes up for in companionship. So simply throw the thing, fill up your inventory slots, and then you can watch it follow you around. If you're MatPat, you'll want to pay attention to this one, because as you can see, we've put some familiar animatronics into Minecraft. As the channel Beastin' and Feastin' shows, all we need are some armor stands posed the right way to make one of these creepy characters right in vanilla. Just make sure you sleep after you build them. I wouldn't want to risk a night shift around these. Here's why we used a Hoglin in our build. If we were to summon in a Hoglin using this tag is immune to zombification, then we'll be able to keep it alive long enough to play dead. And then after we add in the Dinnerbone name tag to it, with some end rods over top laying out horizontally, we get ourselves the perfect pig on a spit illusion that'll be ready for our next Hawaiian luau. Did you know that you could do this with bubble streams? Because apparently, if you throw eggs directly at the water, those projectiles will ricochet and bounce along the bubbles. And functionally, this is a lot like an Ender Pearl stasis chamber, but we're just using a lot more momentum when we throw it out. Which means if you make a couple of baskets, you might be able to set this up for your very own basketball game. And hey, since it works with other entities, with the right amount of force, this could be the wild addition for your next TNT cannon. In Minecraft, it's often easy to accumulate your fair share of junk. And while throwing that stuff into a fire is a fun pastime, what if you really want to get rid of something? Like, say through some chance you came across a particularly cheaty piece of netherite. Well, if you don't have a cactus on hand, then there is one option that we tend to neglect. Items are entities, just like you and me. And that means that these things have a kill switch. So if you take an anvil sky high and drop it on a thing of items, it'll delete the stuff from existence. It's almost like we're creating our own kind of item execution system. But if you really want to get rid of your friend's diamonds, then this will do the trick and then some. I think we've all known that one person who learns how to MLG water bucket and then uses it non-stop. Like, I get it, it's a practical skill, but I don't understand using it to get down from a 4-block drop. So alright, if we're both fed up with it, then why don't we teach them a little lesson? But the question we'll have to solve is, how do you stop water? Because really, unless you're in the nether, there are not many ways to stop a water bucket. Unless we take it up a step, by using this upside down step. Since half slabs can be waterlogged, when they try and land, they'll be greeted to their bucket emptying and no prayer of a clutch save, leaving you victorious and them totally confused about what just happened. When banners do their Swain animation, they clip within certain blocks, which seems like a glitch, but we're gonna use it as a feature. With trapdoors in this banner pattern, we can make it look as if this face is actually blinking, or at the very least, it's checking its surroundings before it goes back to sleep. This user on Reddit shows, if we were to get a drowned mob with a trident into this system, throw the trident at us, and that trident will catch on fire, which we can then use to ignite a piece in TNT, and that'll cause all of these villagers down here to die on the spot, and coincidentally, all turn into zombies. And while we've shown off in the past using the similar version of this to make a record farm, I think this design ends up being a lot more practical, but also a lot more cruel, so maybe check your morals at the door. Clearly, armor stands can be used for some pretty amazing things, and with the help of command blocks, we can push that even further. See, all of these NBT data changes that we do like so, we could automate with repeating commands, meaning we can turn an armor stand like this into a working ceiling fan, which I'll fully admit seems ridiculous, but I also can't argue with the results. And while this option with swords maybe takes the term propeller blades a bit too literally, we could just as well use shields like this example. If you've messed around with map making, you're plenty familiar with the concept of custom player heads, and while these can work fine on their own, they get even cooler when we partner them with armor stands. And my favorite example of so would be this Tiki totem pole. As this user showed off on Reddit, we can mix together placed heads and armor stands to add different scales into our tower, which I think gives a really cool option for decorating your next jungle temple base. And come to think of it, this technique could also be used for some really convincing snowmen. Watch this fish closely, because in Bedrock Edition, if you put a fish inside of a moving water source like this, then if it stays in the same place idle long enough, its swimming animation will infinitely speed up, until, as you can see, we get some pretty wild results. But it's worth mentioning that no matter how much speed it builds up, as soon as the fish actually moves a block, then its animation goes back to normal. So if you're trying to build up speed for 12 hours, you might want to look somewhere else. If you're falling from a great height, water is the all-star pick for safety, and we can use that idea to our favor. See, if you're looking to get even with someone on the server, this water illusion is a solid candidate to do so. As you'll notice, by making several custom maps with a water design like so, we can make a convincing spot for them to land on. Only once they aim for that puddle, they'll just break their legs on a couple of item frames, and that should be a rude awakening for sure. While ancient debris has many cool uses, I think its lava resistance is particularly interesting, and it allows us to make this new kind of smelting. See, since our items won't melt into the flames, we can pour lava over the top of the super smelter and have our hopper input hidden in the inferno. Then, when you need to smelt for scrap, throw a couple of debris in and accept your lava forged reward, which is much cooler than just some simple furnace. When you see lime terracotta, your first thought probably isn't lemonade, but when it's arranged like this, you'll reconsider. With this, we already have the perfect sign for a lemonade stand, and then we can use this trick with a gold helmet armor stand placed on 5 layers of snow and push a glass block over top for a jar of lemonade. And with a final trapdoor and a coral block, we'll make sure that we have any grapes in case any ducks come by. Here's how to take your boat from the ocean right up to sky limit. Since in Bedrock Edition, if you place your boat on top of a pad of slime blocks and then jump on top of it, then once we finally get inside, there was so much potential energy locked in that boat that it'll shoot right up into the sky, giving you a neat party trick to show off to your friends, or who knows, it might even be a cheap way to get an elytra launcher. Shields are a very useful tool, but once you're holding one of these, speed is the last thing on your mind. Though, the Bedrock Edition might have an interesting solution for that. Here, when your friend holds a shield, we can punch them multiple times and still get the knockback, which has led some of the community to discover a technique like this. Here, we can alternate shield usage between the two players and essentially create a ladder of sorts. No joke, you could even use this to jump 6 blocks high in some cases. And not to mention that using this properly could also help you to clear horizontal distances as well, making these shields a lot better for traversal than any of us thought. Redstone timers can be a bit complex to build, and while sure there are comparably simpler options like hopper clocks and such, if you're really looking to make a no-brainer redstone clock, then this is your candidate. As you'll see, our solution here is gravity, and a violation of the Geneva Convention. By having a mob stand on top of some turtle eggs, there's a set amount of time before they crack. So given that, there is a theory that you could form some kind of timer using turtle eggs. Is it immoral? I guess it doesn't seem the nicest, but if you're really looking for a timer that's light on redstone, this does do the trick. So maybe just keep this behind closed doors and don't let your visitors know how the sausage gets made, alright? I'm mixing together a grindstone with a new crafter block. Then if we look at the front here, we have what looks to be a face of a robot riding on a wheel. Add in some levers for arms like this example, or put it on top for an antenna. There's really a lot that you can do here. I mean, if you've seen the movie WALL-E, just think of any of those, and you can probably make it with the crafter. Pigs in saddles are somewhat of a laughing stock when it comes to transportation, but what they lack on the ground, they more than make up for in the skies. It turns out that with the right technique, we can tie a lead between an elytra and a saddled pig, and essentially create a two-person rideshare. Is it practical? I've got no clue, but clearly it's a sight to see. So if you've got both the leads and pigs to spare, it's well worth your time to try this out on the server. And if you start from the right height, you might just clear some serious distance with your friend in tow, which I think is just fantastic. Minecraft has blocks and it has mobs, and oftentimes you don't see the two sides mix, but that changes today, since with the help of cleverly coded falling sand entities and armor stands, this Reddit user was capable of animating a proper functional jumping piston mob. And folks, this isn't done with any mods or resource packs, but in fact, it's fully possible using just command blocks or data pack in vanilla, and the results are equal parts ridiculous and impressive to see. And honestly, this just feels like a Pixar reference waiting to happen. Now, this wolf's tail is spinning, but why? Well, to answer that, we first need to know that a tamed wolf's tail is linked to its health. So the lower its health, the lower the tail. And conversely, if we use commands to make it have a higher health, yeah, the tail starts spinning. So if you were to use the effect commands to give the dog both health boost and regeneration, we could watch its tail spin in real time. Just don't get dizzy when you try to watch it. Building a house is a tale as old as time in Minecraft, but having the game build house for you is a bit more exciting. That's why this display of a house built entirely of falling blocks is so wild to see. What's happening here is that we have a command block array perfectly timed to launch each and every block into its respective place, until it finally gives us our finished result. And full disclosure, for this to work, you will need a flat surface. Otherwise, those building blocks will just collide with one another and fall right off course. At some point, I think we've all wanted to be an astronaut, but without $1 billion in the bank, that's a pipe dream for most of us. So that leaves us two options. We can either sit around and mope, or start to work in Minecraft science. As it is, we don't have much in the way of rocket fuel, but what we do have is TNT, and a lot of it. Which means if we grab a whole bunch of TNT minecarts, we can pack enough of these suckers into a small space to launch us right towards the moon. Though maybe pack some blast protection and totems on Undyne to do this. Otherwise, both you and your dreams would go up in smoke. Stop using fireworks for your elytra. Instead, try a dolphin. No joke, if we take after this user's example, all we have to do is attach a lead to a dolphin, start swimming in the ocean, and then once we build up enough speed with the dolphin's grace potion effect, we can go straight from swimming right up into launching into the sky. And while that's ridiculous enough on its own, it's funny to realize that we're not the only one that takes flight. So make sure that you and your dolphin buddy landed somewhere safe. By throwing down seeds for a villager, regardless of the type, they're gonna walk towards and pick it up. And this blew my mind when I first heard it. I thought it would have only worked with farmer villagers, but sure enough, there is a way to get them to follow the breadcrumb trail. If you're not prepared, the Wither can be a tough opponent, especially on harder difficulties. I mean, at the very least, with 300 HP to its name, taking one down isn't usually a speedy experience. Or so you thought. As it turns out, while we've been wasting our time using swords, tridents, and axes to slay the boss, there's actually a much stranger option for victory. By crafting yourself a chunk of these fully powered firework rockets, then that's all that you need to beat the beast in roughly 10 seconds. Though I should know that for safety, it's probably best to spawn it under a bedrock fountain like such, but after you do that, then you can just simply hold down the right-click button and get ready for the hard-earned nether star. My actual personal favorite use of these hanging signs so far is if we do something like this user did here. First, we're gonna have to build up into the sky, and then with a couple of these iron trapdoors as fans, we can place blinking lights at the bottom, and finally add in our hanging sign with the face design of your choice, and we got a little robot face. Just add in red dye, and it's a lot more of an attack drone, which I would be angry too if someone came by and broke my buttons. Minecraft blocks come in one shape and size. That is, until today. See, by using distance and a clever stair-step-like build, we can make it seem as if the block that we placed is actually quite small. In this way, we practically guarantee that any visitors will be left with a question mark as to how it works. But besides a prank, you might actually find yourself using this on a larger scale. And really, we'll leave the finer details of that to you. But I will say, this could make for a real mind-bending entrance to your next base. Turtle eggs don't seem to do a lot. Like any baby, these things are quite the liability until they grow up, but that might just be our biggest asset. Since these eggs crack under the simplest bit of pressure, we can make an extremely easy trap. Just sneak one of these little guys under a thing of carpet, and then, as soon as any zombie or ne'er-do-well comes by, they'll be met with quite the surprise. One jump and that's it, and they'll start tumbling toward their doom. You'll have one less hooligan to worry about, and now you don't have to worry about the egg or the fool. So if you got the Silk Touch on hand, this might just pave the way for the perfect possibility. As it's clear to see, Minecraft is a game made of blocks, which is why it's such a cursed sight to see a circle like so. But even if it breaks Mojang's unspoken rules, there are plenty of cool things that we can still do with these. As is, the way that we pull these off is by summoning a bunch of armor stands around a relative position. And then, to give that subtle curve, we have them face towards the center point and then give us that smoothed out area. And while Mysticat has shown off how to make one of these into a pool of water, we could also just as well make a tire swing out of these, and both of which are plenty cool to see. Minecraft staircases should be straightforward, but as we've shown in the past, there are plenty of weird staircases that we can put to use in our worlds, and this is no different. What might look like a random mix of blocks and foodstuffs is actually the fastest walkable staircase in the game. The truth is that the way that these hitboxes are laid out, it's just so that we can stand in the middle and climb these staircases seamlessly. And sure, a proper spiral staircase would look much nicer, but if you want the speed as you climb up to your mountain, this is hard to beat. Since even though you can't see it, if you use a dispenser to shoot armor at a villager, it'll actually equip it into their secret inventory. And make no mistake, even if you can't see it, they are definitely wearing it, and they'll take way longer to kill, and they can even use the Thorns enchantment as well. So if you've got an amazing villager that you're trying to keep safe from your zombies, this is definitely a useful trick to keep them alive. Or if you're looking for more live entertainment, then you could give a villager Frostwalker and send it out into the ocean. You're gonna have to zoom in to see this one, but that's kind of the point. Since by tucking a button inside an invisible item frame like this, we get the perfect amount of texture and detail to make ourselves beetles crawling on your oak log. And while they're admittedly a lot smaller than the spiders and bees that we already see in the game, let's be honest, I feel like this looks more realistic anyway. And if you built one of these with a glowing item frame, then you might just have a firefly on one of these logs as well, which is nice because they're not in the game otherwise. Beacons are a sight we're all familiar with, but maybe not like this. Though even if this seems cursed, the tech to pull it off is surprisingly simple. See, beacons are transparent blocks, meaning beacon beams can pass through other beacons. So if you have the spare blocks on hand, you can make something of a custom beacon in vanilla. And while this does wind up being a pretty expensive facade, the results are definitely unique, and it might be the perfect prank for your next friend's visit. Now, when Bamboo was first released, the first thing that many fans noticed is that it looks a lot like spaghetti, especially the mosaic block. So why don't we just embrace it? Since with an invisible item frame and a mosaic block like this, we can again put a heavy-weighted pressure plate over top, and we got ourselves some spaghetti noodles. If we tuck a villager into a minecart like this, its hat will still poke through the floor. So with enough slabs and a shepherd villager, we can make our very own moving Roomba that rides around your floor. And the funniest thing about this is that the villager can still pick up things like bread, carrots, and potatoes, so it'll help you clean up your food scraps after the 5-second rule. Unfortunately, we can't tie villagers to leads, and I doubt Minecraft's gonna change that anytime soon. But we can attach leads to cows. So if you were to get a herd of cows and tuck a villager in the middle of them, it's true that we can use our cattle crew to essentially drag the villager with us, which is more than a little finicky, but if you really need the solution, this could come in clutch. And hey, it can even help you bring them across bodies of water. So until Mojang lets us use chains to bring along the villagers the other way, this is our best bet. Don't go near this composter. Well, I warned you. With a sticky piston and a slab, we can add in an armor stand like this and pop up any mob that we choose out of our composter. And then the real kicker is that if we fill in the composter with something like hay, all of that compost can completely hide the head inside. Or rather, it'll hide it until it's too late. When we press the button, we're able to open up this store, but not in the way that you think. The way we do this is just by retexturing different things to look like our iron doors. So for the first one, we've got trap doors, and then for the next we use a TNT duper to blast our way through. And my personal favorite is seeing this sand door pressing the button, and instead of falling, it's really just going up into the sky. Is gravity wrong? Are we wrong? I honestly don't know. But they did do a behind the scenes video where you can see how this actually happens. That and the original video are very cool, if not obviously confusing. Alright, be honest, what render distance do you play on? 12, 16, or 48? Since with this mod called Slide, you're able to move the sliders in the options menu completely off the bar. And honestly, I think just the clips alone of sliding it off like this is pretty funny. But it could be useful too. I mean, if you want to take a screenshot of the entire end island that you transformed, you're really not able to fit that in low FOVs in your entire render distance. So with this, it becomes a little bit more useful, if not a lot more laggy too. And if you're gonna try this out, I should say, the mod developer says that you should never change the target resolution outside of its slider. Otherwise, that'll cause the game to crash. I mean, if that's your goal, go ahead, but you can't say I didn't warn you. Now, if you were to get hit by a falling anvil, it's gotta hurt. And while that's true for us, it's not as much for the villagers. Or at least if you compare the two, in Bedrock, if you drop an anvil on a sleeping villager, it won't take any damage. Minecraft has plenty of mobs to witness in the base game, but once you've played as much as we have, these things are old hat. So if you're tired of foxes that look like this, then maybe this is worth a shot. See, by using armor stands aligned like such, we can use much smaller versions of the blocks to create our own special sculptures. And the best part is that all of these are possible without using mods. So while the complexity on display can clearly vary, there's still plenty of creativity to see. And while I can only imagine the headache would require to painstakingly lay out each piece of this tiger, I also can't argue that the results are quite special. Entity cramming is an often forgotten rule of Minecraft. For those who don't know, the idea is that if you get more than a set amount of mobs in a 1x1 spot, then the game is going to apply steady damage until that number drops below the threshold. But unless you're doing some insane breeding on your cows and sheep, most of us don't even brush up against this. Though it could be surprisingly useful, particularly through minecarts. In this example, we've got a whole bunch of hopper minecarts that can fully squish the nether star out of a wither. I'm being serious, even one of the biggest bosses of the game could get hopelessly crushed by the limitation, proving that sometimes the greatest weapon is just some well-kept guidelines. Alright, the next one I was told is a surprise, so yep, still ain't surprises. But unfortunately for all of us, these bamboo blocks look a little too close to faded yellow wallpaper. And what I'll also mention is that if you use some of the bamboo signs and don't type anything on top of them, then with the horizontal lines that they have on top, they look pretty good for vents. And now I'm just wondering how you're supposed to no-clip out of the back rooms. Oh, there you go. Here's how to make your dripstone even deadlier. Use a fishing rod. Silly as that might sound, as this user shows us, it's entirely possible. If you find yourself in a situation like this, place the dripstone underneath the block, and then when you break its support block, you can catch onto the dripstone as an entity with your bobber, and use that to throw towards your enemies. So while getting the spacing might still be pretty tough to do this, when you pull it off and kill your friend, it really is something special. And this might be the only dripstone kill that's able to top the one that Green got on Double Life. Here's how to moonwalk in Minecraft. All we need is an elytra. First off, we're gonna fly down to the ocean, and then hold up the spacebar so that we push ourselves back up to the top of the water. And then from there, we can just start walking backwards, which is a fun sight for sure, but remember, this will use up some of your elytra durability, proving that even the best dance moves have their expiration date at some point. It's a tale as old as the 1.3 update. When you enter a desert temple, you've got to disable that stone pressure plate, and failure to do so could easily be the end of your run. But even knowing that plan, mistakes can happen. So whether it was you, a friend, or maybe the rabbit that triggered the plate, the fact still stands that we need to fix this, and fast. And to do that, there's actually a simple solution. As you'll notice, by breaking the pressure pad and the block that it's on, we can fill that space with a water bucket to flood the explosion chamber. And from there, the TNT detonates, but it doesn't delete the blocks or cause us any harm up here, letting us still claim those treasure chests all the same. Getting the Sniper Duel achievement is no easy task, but that's nothing Redstone can't help. And here, instead of shooting at the skeleton head on, we shoot at a target block placed directly above him, and then we rig a sticky piston and pull it away on command, meaning that after we walk 50 blocks away, we can flip the lever, activate the piston, and we'll get the achievement no problem. And hey, this will also work for the bullseye achievement. Just switch out the skeleton for a target block instead. If you want to play Minecraft survival without the added challenge of, well, surviving, then peaceful mode is an obvious choice. Or so you thought. You see, even though this mode claims to remove all dangerous mobs, one spy seems to have slipped through the cracks. While playing on peaceful mode, the llama is the only mob capable of harming the player. I mean, I know spit is gross, but is it really that bad to be the only damaging thing in the mode? Well, luckily, these animals only attack when they're provoked. So in the meantime, maybe just stick to the truly passive cows for your leather, alright? Water isn't all that bouncy. A bold statement, I know. But that might be unfortunate, because as you'll soon find out, these fish love to bounce around. And to test that, let's set up a slime block trampoline right over here on dry land. Then all it takes is spawning a cod in place, and you'll see that sucker take off to the moon and back. It looks like it's having a blast, but if you're gonna do this, maybe give the fish a health boost or something, so that this party doesn't turn into a murder mystery. So even though these fish might not like dry air, I think this might make their stay a bit more enjoyable. Here's how to beat the warden using just some wool blocks. Now, as you might know, wool can be used to deafen the sound that comes from the vibrations, which if we take that to the logical extreme, if we then place wool around a warden as it's climbing out of the ground while spawning, we'll be able to make make it both trapped and oblivious to what's happening around it, which at that point means we can walk around the perimeter and then it'll despawn after time when it doesn't get any stimulus. It's a bold move, but it can work out if you've got the right skills. Instead of placing all these flowers by hand, we're gonna do it with a bow. Strange as it may seem, using the place feature command, we're able to swap out an entity for a decoration. So if we set up the execute command like this in a command block, that'll be able to turn our spray of arrows into a beautiful flower garden. And if you want to make this whole process even faster, I'd recommend using a multi-shot crossbow so you get even more of a spray at the end. Just make sure not to shoot anybody while they're enjoying the roses. How did we make these minecarts fly? Well, the reason's bees. Because if you summon in a minecart riding as a passenger on top of a bee, it'll actually still let the minecarts fly around and they'll still be functional. And then if we take after this user and make the bees invisible, we have quite the minigame to climb up to the top of the base. Just make sure you don't hit the sneak key, otherwise you'll be in a spot way worse than last place. The Warden's a tough mob to kill, and because of that, it can't drown or burn alive. So if you were to put it on top of a pad of magma blocks, it would never die. But if you put those same magma blocks underwater, it also can never escape. Because its movement speed is too slow to escape the current, it'll just spin around in a circle on those bubbles, which is hilarious to watch, but still don't get too close to it. Otherwise, it could still use its sonic boom attack and make it a lot less funny to watch. Let's face it, no one wants to wait at their desk for hours, which is why going AFK is such a beautiful concept. But what seems like a dream for time management could just as easily be a nightmare. And I've seen far too many times where an AFK trip ends in an unattended death and a loss of items. So to fix that, let's give ourselves somewhere safe to wait. And for that, I think these safety boxes are a brilliant addition. By throwing down a composter with a trapdoor lid, we can squeeze ourselves into place and then shut the box for safety. That way, no monsters that spawn nearby can come over and ruin the operation. And then, when finished, we can hop out and reap the rewards just as planned. Minecraft treats certain hitboxes in weird ways, and that can be best seen when we talk about entity stacking. See, in certain cases, it's possible to rest one entity on top of another. And while I personally use this for letting me use a minecart as a hat, it can also let us crowd surf. Sure enough, if you ride a boat on top of a bed of entities, we can ride it just the same as we would on ice. Granted, it might not be the most popular travel method, but I'd say it's definitely worth a try, at least once for the screenshot. Although snow golems try their best, they don't exactly make for the best defense. I mean, unless they're fighting a blaze, these fellas don't even do damage, just knockback. And that's not exactly cutting it for our purposes. So, to make these frosty friends a bit more ferocious, we need to crank up the heat. And for that, I'm actually being serious. In Bedrock Edition, if you put fire in front of their projectiles, then we straight up mix the fire and the ice, get something they gotta fear. And from there, all you gotta worry about is keeping the things safe. But as long as you use something like honey blocks to keep baby zombies from jumping in, then these should keep your villagers safe and secure, all while breaking the laws of physics as well. If we cross together multiple armor stands and pose their arms in a certain way, we can then add in leaves to get something of a smaller tree. And while this is much easier to pull off in Bedrock where they have the arms by default, with a data pack this is plenty possible in all versions. The death and loading screens are a staple of Minecraft, and they're so commonplace that by this point, no one's surprised by them. But we can use that to our advantage. Taken after this user, we can make a giant version of the respawn screen in our creative world. And with the help of map art, we can make this even more convincing. Then, after we place these down at spawn, we can fool anyone who respawns into seeing yet another respawn screen when they least expect it, letting us watch from the sidelines and get quite the laugh while we're doing it. This is not an end portal, but from a distance, it might trick you. And up close, it's still a pretty funny conversation starter to have. By just using the new skulk blocks, we have a texture that matches the void that we see out in the end. So if we lie on a 3x3 grid with a couple of endstone blocks and Eyes of Ender, you might have the perfect artificial piece to put on display in your next museum. Villagers do a lot of trades, but they don't pay a lot of taxes. And now, with just a name tag, we can change their name to taxable subject and start to get paid back some of that real estate tax. And the better yet is that the higher the skill level of the villager, the more rent that they'll pay back. So while a novice villager will only pay 1 emerald a day for living on your land, if you get them up to a master, then you're earning 5 emeralds a day. But be careful, because all it takes is the villager getting slightly hurt, and then they're not going to pay you any more taxes because they got to cover their health care. But if you have a splash potion of healing, you can bring them right back up and start earning your profits just like you were. I don't know that rotten flesh is a bad food source, but I doubt your pickaxe is any better. But hey, with the help of this mod, it's not just the foodstuffs that's edible, but in fact, every item within the game becomes something that we can eat. And I think the best way to use this is to put it in a mod pack with other stuff that you're giving to your friends, so then when they download it, you can just confuse them when you start eating your shovel in front of them. And really, that's the only purpose you would ever do this for. It doesn't restore hunger, it just gives you the nausea effect. And it probably also makes it really annoying when you're trying to place down a block, only to just eat it in front of yourself. Maybe be more infuriating than confusing. With a mix of carpet and wool blocks, we can lay out the perfect rug to have ourselves a picnic. And then by using pressure plates for the, well, plates, we can really make this look as if it's lived in. And for my money, the best part of this whole facade is using an invisible item frame to add in a little shovel for a spoon. That's just perfect. What's the fastest way to escape from a maze? Instead of breaking blocks, of course. While there might be good tactics like always staying to the left wall and so on, with the way that Spifey built it here, even the best of advice and tips and tricks aren't going to be able to get you out of this one. Since with help of the Create mod, it's possible to make a maze that has moving sections so that the player never escapes. And to me, this feels like something out of a fantasy novel, almost like the Labyrinth in Greek mythology. And at this point, I feel like the only way I can break out of here is if I'm literally allowed to break out of here. I mean, if the maze is changing, why can't I change the rules? Just seems fair. Did you know villagers are scared of sponges? Because apparently, now they are. Since with this user's data pack, we're able to make it so that dry and wet sponges can scare our villagers, which could be useful to keep certain areas off limits. Otherwise, they might wander in and find something a lot scarier on the other side. With the help of a golden block and a piston, we're able to completely break piglin bartering on Bedrock. With just a simple redstone clock like this, we can have a sticky piston push a golden block back and forth, and for some reason that completely messes with the piglin's AI, where they're now trading every single tick possible. But on Java, if you were to do this, you'd just be out a bit of redstone. It's more of a noise complaint than anything that's gonna fill your pockets. This skin is only possible on Bedrock Edition, since in Java, if you were to have transparent pixels in the first skin layer, it'll just turn them black instead. But in Bedrock, that's not the case, and the only requirement for Bedrock is that you have just one visible pixel, making for this perfect camouflage skin. Steve's technology isn't exactly high-tech, so if you're tired of the Dark Ages and want to bring your realm into the Information Age, why not try this? By throwing a gradient banner like this on a shield, you can get a pretty convincing cell phone when it's placed in an item frame. And while I doubt that T-Mobile has coverage on your server, this might be a nifty detail to add to your next desk. Did you know that there's hay bale half slabs? Well, kind of. Because if you get a far villager like this one and then tuck it underneath a slab or stair, it's possible that the hat on top actually blends in with the hay bale texture, which is pretty ridiculous, but if you have a villager breeder, I think it's more than worth a shot. Because as we all know, nothing comes cheaper than villager labor. Just make sure you don't look too closely at its eyes when it's begging for help. What if Minecraft wasn't made of cubes? I mean, it sounds like a dumb question, right? Would it really even be Minecraft anymore? And it only takes one look at the No Cubes mod to try and figure that out for yourself. I mean, sure, I can still recognize the terrain and everything, but am I comfortable looking at it? Not so much. But what's really impressive here is that because this mod's so optimized, it actually runs better than the blocks that we're used to in Minecraft. But when you start to go into a cave and explore around here, it makes me glad that Minecraft works on a grid system. I would not be able to figure this out any other way. How to turn your villagers into a fully functional army. First, you're gonna need to craft some white banners. And then, after placing one of the white banners into your offhand, that'll immediately summon an army of 20 villagers to fight for you, as well as putting a banner on your own head so you don't get confused. But be careful, because by taking that banner off, you're just gonna disband the army. And then, by putting your other white banner into either your 7th, 8th, or 9th slot in your hotbar, you're able to choose the formation that the villagers take, at which point we can use them to attack against the raids that are coming towards us, or even to fight our friends. In vanilla Minecraft, there's no way to change your size, but with this dollhouse, you'll think that we did. Since if we flip open this trapdoor to crawl inside, because of the invisible item frames that we used, we can place specific items to look as if they're placed within the world. And while it might fall apart if you take a closer look, things like the bed and the bookshelf on the wall do look quite nice, giving you a very cute build and a very mild case of claustrophobia. And when you finally get sick of trading with your villagers, then with the help of this data pack, we're able to make it so that if you tuck a hopper underneath a villager's bed, then when they sleep, their items will just pour into the chest, which finally gives you a good reason for not sleeping in the village at night, proving ultimately that when they snooze, they lose, and the rest will be our gain. Unless they decide to use a macro or way down a key on their keyboard, AFK players aren't the most active. So to fix that, one of my favorite things to do is put my AFK friends inside of an AFK loop-de-loop machine like this. Through the help of slime blocks, pistons, and ice blocks, you're able to completely get them cycling around this perpetual motion machine, giving them enough motion to make sure they don't get kicked for being AFK, and you quite the spectacle to watch as they're trapped. Let's say your friend is a big fan of the ocean, but foolishly on them, they built their base right in the heart of a desert biome. Obviously, that's a pretty dry place to be, so thanks to you, you cleaned it up for them and turned their entire house into an aquarium. And folks, I'm talking the whole 9 yards. Water source blocks everywhere, seagrass, grass, kelp, fish, you name it. And hey, speaking of that, we don't exactly want them to drown down here, so why don't you give them some form of air pocket with a sign or a door? That way this jovial redecoration isn't exactly turning into a hit job. The different mob heads that you get from charged creepers make for great trophies in Minecraft, but they're not exactly doing much there, so if you decide to take the creeper off your shelf and instead put it on your head, then let's get ready to scare your friend when they get back online. Doing a setup like this, all you gotta do is chug an invisibility potion, put yourself right in their line of sights, and get ready to scare them. When they log back in, they might just be so startled that they don't know what to do, which means that if you're super cruel, you can use them trying to get away to go right into another trap of your design and might just kill them. Everyone knows that when you break all the logs in a tree, the leaves should disappear, but that doesn't explain why these are still left standing hours after the trunk. And no, this doesn't have anything to do with update suppression or changing the random tick speed, but rather, we just replace the leaves on our friends' trees with ones of our own. Then, once we place them back down, these decoration blocks can no longer despawn over time, which not only gives them an eyesore, but it also guarantees a couple of chores for them to clean up. Now, using sea lanterns and snow-covered maps is already a famous way to trap your friends. An infinity room, a matrix room, whatever you want to call it, it's been done before. And while I still fully love this design, there's still more we can do with this. Like, for example, what if we trap them in a different color? All of a sudden, that white infinity room of nothingness turns into a blue screen of death. Anyone who plays on Windows is already pre-programmed to get a shock of horror when they see this shade of blue on their screen, so it's a pretty good way to give them a jump and a startle when they come back onto the server. Trapping your friends in Minecraft is a real joy, but in a game where even bedrock could be destroyed, how do you keep them from breaking out? Well, according to the evil masterminds of the community, we've got a solution like this to do the trick. See, when we lay it out like such, even our best tools are practically useless to bust us out, and I'm guessing your friend gives up on escaping before any of these give out. Maybe it's just me, but whenever I plan an SMP, one of my friends always turns into a cold-hearted businessman. So if some of you out there are the same and you're looking to fulfill that entrepreneurial lifestyle, this is the one for you. You see this AFK friend? Well, that's our supplier. All you gotta do is kill them, collect their stuff, and then put it into a shop at spawn. Just like that, you got a whole bunch of stuff to sell. And fortunately for you, a customer that just happened to lose all their items. Which means that when they try to buy their items back, you can sell them at the most absurd prices. So either they buy it back, or they might just start at square zero. We all know that one person on the server who has way too many animals at the farm, and at this point it's starting to seem like a problem. So to cut that back and give them a lesson on the importance of free range, why don't we do them a favor and continue to breed those animals? See, by overcrowding their pig pen, we guarantee that at a certain point, the entity cramming kicks in and that ruins their fun. And with that folks, YouTube thinks that you might like this video, so see if they're right and have a good one, alright?